do you think the current resident priorities are for industry action based on your thoughts and meetings with membership over the last 12 months? And we might start with you, Alistair, and then move down the panel.
In one way, I don't have the broad perspective because my real patch is in the ACT, where things have moved on, apart from ongoing issues about capital maintenance and repairs. And I guess everybody in this room will know about that. Now, who pays for what is the short answer. But then I do get to hear from time to time what are issues for individuals from Western Australia, South Australia, Victoria, New South Wales, Queensland, because they ring me up to say, what does the Act say about this? And I say, well, firstly, tell me where you are, because I don't know all the legislation and I don't anticipating ever know all the legislation in detail. But I did discover recently somebody who's a member of a village board who introduced himself and said, I'm the lawyer and I know all about every piece of retirement village legislation.
Sounds like a very exciting guy. Yeah?
Yes. And then he turned and walked away.
I love all our lawyers in the audience,
Yes.
of course.
Anyway.
Yes. Yeah, but it is, I mean, and that goes to a point that we were discussing before. I mean, each of you puts in a tremendous amount of voluntary time. It's often weekends, unless you can fend people off until Monday morning. You know, there is a lot to deal with, and certainly you would say the last couple of years have been particularly heavy in terms of regulatory interaction and changes in frameworks and how do you find dealing with that? Is that Judy, would you like to?
Judy, go.
I think that, and it ties in a little bit with the first question, I think that residents are getting anxious. I think there's a lot of unrest and a lot of uncertainty in villages, and people are not sure which way they're going. I think that they're frightened that their village is going to be sold. They're frightened of the changes that are occurring. They want stability. They want to move into a village and retire. And I don't think that always happens in villages because of the changes. So I guess I'm flagging that the Code of Conduct and the accreditation standards, as you start to introduce those, you need to do them in as open and a transparent a way as possible, because it just causes more anxiety, particularly for the older residents or residents who have been there for a long time, or for residents in villages that you may have bought out. So if the village has been bought out, there's been a change of operator or some major changes in the village, anything new just adds to residents' anxiety. And I think there's a general feeling amongst a lot of residents that we really are concerned because we don't know what's happening.
I mean, it is a great challenge, isn't it? You want to raise the bar in such a way as to bring everybody with you. I know maybe that was Jane's point before about teams collaborating, but there is a process that involves heavy over-communication as these, parameters are changed, I suppose. Yeah.
And I think also residents in Queensland had an unreal expectation somehow that the amendments would bring about, instant change and everything in the village would be wonderful as soon as the new legislation comes in. And I mean, that's not real, but I think that was the expectation of many residents.
And how have you found, just while we've got you, Judy, I mean, we were talking before about the last 12 months in terms of your experience of the engagement with operators. There are a lot of them in the room. How would you reflect on that process?
Well, I think one of the things that has happened for our association is that we changed completely the way that we were working. And I think that operators now understand that we're actually both on the same page. We don't want the industry to collapse. We want to have villages where residents are comfortable and happy and content. And so we would much prefer to work with operators and in many ways to assist operators when we can to resolve the issues. And, you know, I'm really pleased to say that this year we haven't gone to QCAT with a single case. We've been finding that operators, because I think there is beginning to be a trust built up between us, that operators are much more prepared to negotiate with us. Now, look, it's not going to be, you know, we're always going to have issues. As I think I've said at a past one of these, we'll sit down to dinner with you, but we won't go to bed with you. But we will, you know, we are prepared to negotiate, and operators seem to be responding to that and being willing to negotiate with us. And even if things turn out either way, not in the way each of us have planned, we just move on from there. And you know, if there's another negotiation, that gets taken up as, you know, with a clean slate. So no, there are some operators that aren't as willing to negotiate. There are some operators that try to ban us from actually turning up in their village. I think they think we're going to, you know, have their residents marching through waving banners or something. But and again, our change has been that if there is an issue that we just cannot deal with, that there is a serious breach of the Act, the Department of Housing in Queensland is where the Retirement Village Act sits. We will just go directly to the department, and the department will intervene on our behalf or on our advice. And the department has, in a couple of villages where there have been very serious breaches, the department has come in and investigated that village fully. So we no longer take on the cases that are long extended cases, which in many instances we can't win because there are more powers needed than we as an association have.
But you've got an active referee who's handing out red cards, so it's...
Yes, we have, and one village actually ended up closing, all three of the villages that was owned by this particular operator, because of the intervention of the department.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, we'll go down the line. Jim.
Thanks, Mike. Well, I'm pleased to say I can echo what Judy said. We in New South Wales are just completing our second year of the reform process, and we're all exhausted, I suspect. But we're cooperating with operators on two levels, I think. One is during the reform process, we've had some really good off-camera discussions with the RLC in New South Wales, and it's been a really good forum to air our various views and understand the other's point of view. And I think on both sides of the coin, we've modified our views somewhat as a result of those discussions. So it's been very good. But on another level, where we're dealing with inquiries and complaints by our members, we've had some really good cooperation this past 12 months from operators, particularly large operators, who are prepared to get in there and help solve the issues. And it's been a terribly positive experience, and we're very pleased with that. One of the important matters of debate is the question of exit entitlements that has been under debate now for 3 or 4 months. And as a result of discussions with the operators, it started me thinking about, well, what are we really trying to achieve here? I mean, we know that the legislation's going to come in to regulate this in some way, but what are we really trying to achieve? And I understand that the operators are really concerned about the implications and what might happen and what implications that has for their businesses. As Judy said, we don't want operators to fail. It's not in our interest for operators to fail. We want them to succeed. And as I've moved around villages, just over the last 3 months, I've been sniffing the air, so to speak. And, you know, there are some villages who don't have a problem with exit entitlements because they have a high occupation rate and they have a very rapid turnover of vacancies. And I started wondering, well, why is that so? Why do some people have real difficulty in achieving that, and others just seem to float through on it? And it comes down to, I think, the concept of having a happy or a positive village.